Welcome to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today we have with us Amanda Butler. How are you, Amanda?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's my absolute pleasure. I love talking everything entrepreneurs, so I feel like I'm in the right spot.
Oh, that is awesome. To begin with, can you kind of introduce yourself and exactly what you do, and then we'll take it from there?
Sure. I'm a Louisiana lawyer. I started my own law firm about 5 years ago after working in big law for 10 years and have been on the entrepreneurial ride myself, advising clients on all types of business matters and helping them grow as I grow along with them. And it's been a real pleasure. So everything related to your legal compliance, including HR matters, contracts, tax issues, structuring your entity properly, an operating agreement, which is always kind of everybody's biggest weakness, unfortunately. And everything else related to legal compliance is what I advise clients on, whether it's at the startup phase or while they're growing, or even when they're in the mature phase of their business.
Well, glad to have you here because that's excellent. I'm glad that you went into the entrepreneur world because it's super exciting, and we want more and more of you to join us. So this is great. Do you miss the corporate side, though?
I think I miss maybe the banality of the corporate side every once in a while. It's pretty easy to wake up every day and work for a bank. They definitely have their act together. They are doing things mostly by the book. So there's not a lot of crazy roller coaster rides that I have with my entrepreneur clients that I have today. So definitely the everyday humdrum is sometimes missing. But I will say, I just don't think I'm the type of personality that can suffer through that for too long.
Yeah, it's true. I was in the corporate world as well, and I don't miss it per se in that sense. But I guess I miss just the people. That I would be around. Like in the morning, we would go for a coffee, right? A whole bunch of us, and then just after an hour or so, we'll meet again, and then at lunch, and build some incredible relationship because it's like a family, right? You start becoming like a family.
It's so true. I do think that the one issue with kind of blazing your own path is it gets a little lonely, and I think that's why I've started building my own team. I've thought, let's build a team that I am excited to work with every day, who I get to really customize and choose myself. So I'm on that path right now myself. And certainly before that, I think, it's a little lonely sometimes when you're forging that path.
Yes, it's true. And then, especially the tendency to kind of the team that you develop in my world is most of them are virtual, right? Like it's everybody still, you meet and you talk and you build relationship, but it's just not that human to human, face to face kind of, at least in my world, but it's not, so it's different, right?
I do half and half. Yeah. So I have some all virtual employees, and then I try to make an office as well. So, because I know that every person likes to work a little bit differently. And I think if you let them work in the manner that they want to work, sometimes they bring you, their best. And if you create a construct that kind of inhibits their flexibility, you can end up really not getting the best people, I think.
Yeah, and keeping it a little laid back, right, and give you some more options. They do, people perform much better when they're happier, right? And mindset is a big part of it. So, do you have something about mindset with them that you do on a daily or consistent basis to get them to produce and be happy and be more involved as a team? Or or when you hire them, you have like a checklist to see, in your interview to see if they're a good match?
I've tried all different things. I don't know if I've gotten the answer or configured the exact right way to do it. I do know that checking in with the team at the very start of the day is really important,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of if they're in the office or if they're out of the office. So we do a stand up about 15 to 20 minutes. I try to make it so that it's not a meeting just for meeting's sake. So we do focus on things other than just work, though, in that stand up, where, for instance, on Wednesdays, we have a Wellness Wednesday, and we use that time to hold each other accountable for things that we need to get done on a personal level, or things that, time that we need to do to go to the doctor or to, check in with family, things that sometimes get lost in the shuffle in the 9 to 5. So I do a Wellness
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday. We do a Transactional Tuesday where we're focused really on
Cool.
transactions
I
and the
like the
transactions.
terminologies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so we kind of craft our week with different themes throughout the day. We have Fun Friday. And it's
Nice.
just an ode to trying to get the team all in the same mindset for the day, to understand
Good.
that, look, we all need to knock out various projects and various tasks. Let's meet, let's figure out what those things are, and then let's talk about, those other things that sometimes we don't necessarily get to during the workday, but we need to.
Mm-hmm. And when a business works with a virtual staff, right? In your expertise, is it important to have an independent agreement, independent contractor agreement when you're working with platforms like Upwork and these other platforms? Do you suggest or recommend that every business, whoever they work with, gets one of those signed? And what do you feel? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so let me just tell you, this is the number one biggest problem that I'm seeing with clients all across the board. And the issue is not
Mm-hmm.
about getting an agreement and having the agreement signed. The issue is
Mm-hmm.
about classifying somebody as an independent contractor versus an employee. So oftentimes we lump all remote workers into the category of independent contractor under the assumption that because they are remote, we don't have as much control over them, therefore they must be
Mm-hmm.
independent contractors. And that's simply not the test to determine whether whether somebody is an employee or an independent contractor. The test relates to three things: financial control, schedule control, and or working conditions control, and whether that person has the ability to work for other people as well. And if any
Mm-hmm.
one of those three elements is a yes, you are probably working with an employee and not working with an independent contractor. Regardless of whether or not you have a contract that says that that person is an independent contractor, does not matter. It does not make it so. And so the issue here is not, do you have a contract with your person or do you not have a contract? It's, first of all, we have to decide, and you need to get legal advice on whether that person is or is not an independent contractor. Now, regardless if they are an independent contractor or if they're an employee, you need to have a contract with them that outlines the roles and the duties and the responsibilities. And it can be simple, but it should be an at-will agreement, meaning that you are able to terminate the relationship at any time and for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the biggest issues that I'm seeing just across the board, because so many of us are working, remotely, and there's more flexibility, and it's everybody's instinct to want to pay somebody as an independent contractor because, first of all, it's a lot easier, right? You don't have to run payroll. So you think, oh, this is great. I just have to pay this person however many, whatever the hourly rate is for however many hours. Well, let me just tell you, you can get into a world of hurt. And I'm talking serious, serious tax issues, because essentially by avoiding paying them as a W-2 employee when they were, you're subjecting yourself to IRS issues, to the Department of Revenue of whatever state you're located in, and you haven't been withholding the proper tax on that employee. You also haven't been insuring them on your workers' compensation policy. So if they end up with carpal tunnel, if they end up with some sort of disability as a result of the work that they're doing, you're not covered. Your insurance is not covering them because you've improperly classified them as an independent contractor. So lots and lots of issues here.
So if an individual starts, a freelancer, for example, starts his own or her own business, signs up for one of these platforms, has multiple clients, does work, isn't that a contract base? Isn't that an independent contractor because they're
somebody
furnishing?
Who works for multiple people? That is certainly on the par of being a freelancer, a true freelancer. But oftentimes,
got it.
What you'll notice is somebody might start off as a freelancer where they are working for multiple people. And what happens?
And then full time.
They gravitate to the person who is giving them the most work, and they really start working for them for 40 hours a week to the exclusion.
That's full time.
And that's a full-time job.
Yes.
And when we get to that place, we need to make sure that we actually are putting them on payroll.
Yes, no, that's so clear now. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. If anybody's listening in the audience, get in touch with Amanda here. She knows her stuff, and this is very important information that we don't realize because we're always pushing for leads and we're pushing for growth and we're doing all this, and we never look at this, the back end, the legal side, which like I would call it like the surrounding, basically the wall that surrounds your business. It needs to be protected, and that's taking those actions that you're protecting yourself and the people you work with, right? And such a small thing. Someone could start with 5 hours a week and all of a sudden they keep increasing because their quality of work is phenomenal. And they start going 40 hours a week and they're full time. Technically, they're full time now. You haven't done the legal work for it. That's not good.
And what happens if really they start working 45 hours a week? And now we're still only paying them hourly, right? And we haven't properly classified them as an employee instead of an independent contractor. The law is very clear. They are due not only the difference in the amount of time, but now they're due double. And all of the attorney's fees for that person to file an FLSA claim, FLSA standing for the Fair Labor Standards Act claim, that's all going to be on you. And when you have a business that's in that growth mode, it's easy to think, oh, okay, well, I'll deal with this later. I'm not going to worry about this now. Yeah. And that's how you fall into the trap, and boom, you're probably looking at $100,000 situation.
Oh, man. So my next question would be, well, my next question is, what if that person that evolved into a full-time hours is offshore? They're not even in the country, like they're somewhere else.
Well, that's certainly easier to deal with, and the law is going to be more favorable if you're dealing with somebody who's not in this country. And that's simply because, somebody who is living in, the Philippines or in Costa Rica or in some other offshore location is not subject to the same laws that we are subject to here. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't sue you there if for some reason, a court were to find that their courts were to find that they had jurisdiction. I haven't heard of anything like that. There has certainly not been any sort of international uprising with remote workers yet. And I think that's probably by design. There's a huge economy right now in offshore and remote virtual assistants. So I think we're safe as long as the person is not working here in the States. Again, I say that with the caveat that at any time that law, a court in that
Yeah.
jurisdiction could make a decision that's unfavorable. And then, you could be in hot water in some other location internationally, which Lord knows is also not going to be a good situation.
So do you kind of recommend that when you're working with people, look for offshore people?
I wouldn't say I recommend it because there's a whole nother set of issues that they're not as much legal issues that go along with it, but there's certainly time zone issues. There's
Of course.
language issues. There's a whole other host of issues that are not necessarily legal, but I think that, come with their own disadvantages as well.
So do you have lawyers in your office as well? Other lawyers that work with you or paralegals? Like how does it work?
I have a full-time paralegal. We just hired a full-time intake person. I just lost an associate, but I'm hiring another associate. I'm kind of in a constant state of flux. But the idea for my firm is I'd like to be around 5 or 10 associates in the next 5 years. So one a year. It's a lot of training. It's a lot of growing. It's a lot But
Come on, Amanda. That's it?
It is.
Think bigger. Are you going to go nationwide?
No, probably not. I mean, I really think, there could be an advantage to growing the firm, into other states, but until the work pulls me there, I wouldn't think about it.
Yeah. My buddy, he's a lawyer in New York, and he bought a place in Florida. So he goes there in the summer and he wants to move there so bad, right? So he actually went and he got his bar in Florida as well. So now he still didn't move. He's still in New York, but he has both.
And that's common. I'm seeing that a lot these days where, attorneys are getting barred in multiple states and then they'll have a second home and kind of go back and forth. So that's something I definitely would not count out for sure.
Good.
My husband and I, we actually, right when I opened the firm, we had sold all of our houses, our belongings, and moved on to a sailboat. And so I actually worked from the Gulf Coast on a sailboat for 2.5 years, which was pretty interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. So did you have satellite connection?
No, because we were on the Gulf, you get about 6 miles out into the Gulf. And so as long as you're coastal sailing, for the most part, we were fine. We would often stay in marinas and work, coffee shops and things like that and do the sailing on the weekends. So we were able to do it without a satellite. But if we had gone further than the Gulf Coast, the plan was to do satellite for sure. It's very expensive, at least at the time. Yeah.
Would you do it again?
I think I would do it again. I would do it a little differently. We had a monohull sailboat. I think I would want a catamaran, which gives you a little bit more space. We took our dogs, and unfortunately, the dogs are not great sailors. And so I think we would have to wait until a time in which we did not have at least these dogs who definitely rejected the idea of sailing.
That's incredible. What is your top destination, your dream destination, if you were going to move somewhere?
That's such a hard question. I would think, are we talking about internet, anywhere I wanted to live in the world?
Yeah, like just kind of work remotely.
I mean, I think if I were going to live anywhere, it would be Italy or Greece.
Nice.
Those would be kind of my ideal remote working locations. It would be very, very difficult to accomplish, though, with the practice that I have.
Very good. Yes, of course. Maybe I'm just speaking of
what
something
about you?
That came to mind in the future. For me, it would be I would do Florida or
Florida. You
Hawaii.
could go anywhere in the world, and you're going to go to Florida.
Yeah. You know why? Because Palm Beach, I would like.
Ooh, I do like Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Miami is
The reason
pretty
is,
amazing.
yeah, Miami's a little bit too loud, too busy and stuff, but I don't know. I love it there. Like I go there often. I absolutely love it. Maybe I didn't go around too many places yet to determine, but for now, definitely that would be a place.
It's some of
I
the
wanted
best
to
beaches in
ask,
the world. I can say that
yeah,
affirmatively. Yeah.
yes. So for your, what was I going to ask? I forgot now. Oh, do you have any other business aside from the law firm?
I don't presently. I used to have a side hustle where I sold a study guide for people, for attorneys who were going to sit for the title examination
Uh huh.
course here in Louisiana. So if you want to become a title agent, a title agent issues title policies. And whenever you close a real estate deal, you have to be a title agent in order to issue title policies through an underwriter. And I had sat for the exam, and it was right after I had read Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Work Week. And I had decided I had to create a study guide in order to sit for the exam for myself. So I thought, hey, I
So why
didn't
not?
find this
Yeah.
online. I might as well just
Mm-hmm.
throw it up there and see what happens. And it ended
Mm-hmm.
up being a pretty lucrative little business until last
Oh,
year the
nice.
legislature changed the law. So now you actually have to take a course. You can't just sit for it without a course, which is what you could do
Mm.
before.
So what would be your, say, top two, top three recommendations or suggestions for a new entrepreneur starting any type of business, legally speaking? What would your recommendation be to make sure they're safe before they start their venture?
I think the biggest issue that they need to consider is taxes. And oftentimes we think, especially when you read the internet and you've done your internet lawyering for yourself and you've DIY'd everything,
Google Google law.
you think, well, I formed an LLC, right? I have an LLC and
Mm-hmm.
therefore I am protected personally and all of my personal assets are protected. And every entrepreneur gets to that place for the most part and they form their LLC. What they don't realize is that absolutely does not apply to the IRS or the Department of Revenue in your state. They can go get
Mm.
your personal assets and go after you no matter what. And so there is no amount of protection against any taxes that are owed. And if you end up, really hitting it big on, with your business in that first year and you haven't planned for the tax issue and you haven't been putting taxes aside, you can really get into, some trouble. And so I would say
Mm.
making sure that you are, first of all, paying all of the taxes that you're supposed to be paying. Just because you sell something online does not mean you do not owe sales tax, right? You owe sales tax for that item that is sold online. The question becomes, who do you owe it to? Do you owe that sales tax to the state where you sold it at? Which is, the answer there is no. You owe the sales tax to the state where the person who purchased the item is located or resides. And so if you're selling products online all across the United States and you don't have a way to remit taxes to the appropriate taxing districts, you're really going to create some real headache for yourself and some real legal liability. So I would just
Mm.
say the absolute thing, that you should be making sure of is, first of all, if you're in a services business, that you're putting revenue aside to pay your quarterly taxes, or to opt for S corporation tax treatment as opposed to sole proprietor or partnership tax treatment. What that means is, instead of owing quarterly taxes that you estimate and pay quarterly, which is what you would do typically, you're able to be paid as an employee of the entity, the LLC that has elected S Corp status. And typically we like to see entrepreneurs do that when they are bringing home $180K a year. And so I've seen entrepreneurs that just blow that number out of the water in that first year. And then we have not properly really thought through the tax issue at that time. And they've been taking distributions without setting aside, the taxes that they're going to need to be paid. And so really making sure that you get all of that set up and think through how to do that on the front end it's going to save yourself a huge headache or some really big potential liability.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Amanda. Do you have a free consultation available for people?
I don't provide free consultations because essentially I see my time as valuable, and I give advice to clients straight from the start. But you can book a paid consultation with me for even as low as $179. You can work with me for 30 minutes. We can talk through some of these issues. I'm not going to be the big law firm that requires you to give me a $5,000 retainer. You're going to meet with me. We're going to talk through the key issues. I'm going to get you the advice immediately, and you are going to be set up for success. And so you can find that on my website and book it directly through there. I'm at www.lawgroup.biz, and there's an online scheduling tab.
Amazing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Amanda. $179, it's like going to dinner. Definitely meet with her.
And it could prevent many issues. Yeah.
Yeah, so many issues. Like when I say this, when I bring these guests and I recommend these things, when it's something that, I'm getting something in return, I will say it, like this is my partner. Go to my partner, I will say it. But when you just have to know that I'm not saying this because I'm something I'm gaining from this. I'm saying it that it's a very nominal amount. Meet with Amanda. Make sure you're protected. Make sure you're safe, because you could focus on that growth. You're going to be doing that every single day. You're going to work on your mindset. You're going to work on your personal development. You're going to work on your lead gen. You're going to work on your Instagram. You're going to work on your Clubhouse, all that stuff. But get your walls, like get your protection. Protect your business and yourself and your family, and get in touch with her and see what she has to offer, what advice she can give you, because everyone is different. And Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really a pleasure to have you on. You have a great personality, great energy, very trusting, right? So, and I hope that you grow this business bigger than you're saying, and remain confident, happy, and grow your team. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure.